I'd like to bring this month's meeting of the Support Services Committee to order. I'll start by entertaining a motion to approve we have actually just one. The last Support Services Committee minutes. Motion made by Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We're going to start with purchasing. Julie, proceed please.
Does everybody have an agenda? I think I everybody. Okay. I only have one request this month. It's for Warren County to participate in the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. It's at no cost to the county. It would be the 4th national cooperative that we are going to become a member of, if approved. We do have an immediate need for a contract under this cooperative. So it's not out of the ordinary. It's not that different from any of the other cooperatives that we're members of. It's just going to be a 4th option.
Okay, Supervisor Leggett makes a motion, second by Supervisor McGowan. Questions? Supervisor Leggett.
And no cost.
At no cost.
I have a question, but expect possible savings?
Yes, the first contract that we're going to utilize is going to save us 3.1% on a software program.
So that, and I did mention this in an email to you, the towns are not automatically included in this, but if they signed up for it, they could also have savings.
Correct.
So that,
And these cooperatives have many vendors that they contract with. So it ranges from Lowe's, Home Depot, software vendors, contractors. And you can go in and look at the contractors before becoming a member. The only thing you can't get is pricing until you become a member.
is that Supervisor Sokol?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we know what the 3.1% equates to, dollar-wise?
Dollar-wise on a software program, we're looking at about $1,500 to $2,000.
Julie, is this something that would benefit the towns if you sent them an email as to information about joining this, or would they automatically have that
I can
information?
send one out regarding all 4 cooperatives. Give links to the login or the registration.
Okay. Any other questions, Chairman Conover?
Yeah, I think we belong to 2 of those cooperatives, so I would be interested in seeing the others too.
Okay.
Other questions? Call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else, Julie?
Yep, that's it.
Supervisor Marino?
Thank you. Well, while Julie's still here, I want to thank Julie for trying to work out that deal on the salt for the towns. Work it out. Appreciate your time.
You're very welcome.
Anything else for Julie? All right, thank you very much, Julie. Beth and Bill, and now, thank you for being patient.
Sure. I don't think this guy's
Trying to get me started.
You notice I didn't leave this way.
Sure, did you guys? I believe
Start me up. You're ready. Sure, Phil.
I know how to do it.
Excuse me?
At the completion of your meeting, I want to just mention something that I failed to mention at the Health and Human Services.
Good year for that.
Privilege of the floor.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
All right, Board of Elections, Beth?
Good morning.
Good morning. Floor.
We asked to attend the meeting today basically to explain the new election laws that have been passed since the new administration took over in January. It's been rather exciting at the Board of Elections, believe me. I mean, as many of you know, they have taken our primaries now and basically moved them all up. They're together with the exception of the presidential, which next year we will have 3 elections again. We'll have the presidential primary in February, we'll have the regular primary in June, and we will have the general election in November. For this year, as most of you all know, our primary has been moved up to June 25th from the normal September, which meant for everyone that the petition signing time was moved up from June to February, which has been quite a storm. So the first thing on the agenda, and we've attached it, would be the first group that are kind of stapled together. I'll let Beth discovered this, so we'll kind of do it together, but I'll let her take and run with it. And
This one. So as we know, consolidated primary, we'll just go through that. Just again, that's the primary, both the date of June 25th versus September, which in the long run, I think will be easier. Unfortunately, the petition process will still be late February or March next year also. And all winners.
And if I can just interject for
Sure.
a moment, we received a lot of phone calls about numbers on petitions. Just so you're aware of it, anything that pertains to the numbers on petitions this year will expire December of 2019. So next year, the numbers will all go back to normal. So just keep that in mind, and it won't
Right now, the
affect many of
reduction
them.
for everyone that's running this year is still sitting on the governor's desk. So as soon as we get official words, we'll get it out. So we'll get that 5% at this point. Early voting, 10 days prior to the election for 9 days, including Saturdays, Sundays, and 2 evenings till 8 p.m. We'll be working an additional 68 hours for that week. This year, we are planning on having it right at our office to get a feel for it. Next year, being presidential, and next year also, we'll have all the primaries as early voting. Bill mentioned presidential primary February. At this point, New York State hasn't had their date yet. Could be anywhere from February to June. Next year, we'll have our voting site downstairs at our poll site at the Human Services Building. We feel that will be more folks coming out. So this year, we'll get the feel of it at our office. So spread the word. We'll get, we have our hours kind of in place. We have the days, because we have to have those days. But we're hoping that we can plan our own hours. There's some talk in the state that every Board of Elections has the exact same hours. So
They're
kind
also
of waiting
talk-
for the hours.
And they're also talking about moving up the hours from, in the primary, as you know now, from noon to 9. They're talking about, New York City does from 6 a.m. till 9. And they're talking about making that statewide, so that would increase the hours again for our primary. We don't know that that's going to happen, but after this year, we don't, with all the new laws that have come into effect, we don't know what's going to happen. So that's something else to keep in mind. And we don't know how to project what the turnout's going to be for the early voting. So as Beth said, we're going to try to keep costs down because of the budgeting issue that we weren't able to budget for because we didn't know what laws we're going to pass. We're trying to keep it down. We're going to try to do in our office with our staff for this year. But we know in 2020 during the presidential year, there's no way that we're going to be able to do that with early voting. But it's tough to determine what the turnout for early voting is going to be.
And with that, go ahead.
Supervisor McGowan.
This is just for the primary? Or
Early
is this
voting?
also going to be for the voting in November?
Early voting is starting October and for November election.
All right, and so will we still have our machines at our sites on the...
Yep.
one
Election day will be
normal
exactly
day
the
we
same.
used to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Election day is the same.
Right. We've sent out all our poll work, all our information. Everybody is accepted, luckily, because it looks like as we get further into this, when we start talk about e-poll books, we're going to need Wi-Fi possibly. We still don't know that yet, but all of our polling locations have accepted the dates in the primaries, and so we're all set to go. We've got our confirmations back, our contracts are in place, so.
So I guess my question is, because, being out there with petitions now and doing, and the questions, and if I want to early vote, I have to come here.
That's correct.
Okay, or the person or whatever, so if I happen to be going away and want to do it in the end of October or whatever, I come here. If not, it's still scheduled for the voting day at your poll. All right, that's,
Early voting is additional to your regular.
but it's to your convenience of coming to one location and not have to work.
Yeah.
So that actually...
Yeah.
It's covered
Election
by
law
state
is,
law.
yeah, so 50,000 or under one poll site.
Okay. Oh, all right, that's what
And
that's...
we
50.
feel, Bill and I talked about that, because The Hague is an hour away, but we feel that we're centrally local, we're right off the North Bay, so people are coming down for something. shopping, doctor's appointments, whatever the case may be. And we have evenings to 8 o'clock, and then we have those Saturdays and Sundays for 9 days. I think that gives a lot of opportunity for people to vote.
All right, that's good to know, so I can let people know.
Yep. So we do have the days. Again, the hours are, tentative. With that, early e-poll books comes into play.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. Saturday and Sunday in the Health and Human Services building, so access is going to be...
Correct. We did talk with our
Security.
security.
We've talked with, they're all aware that the early voting is going to come into effect in October. So we talked with the sheriff, we've got the security is pretty much all set up, so it'll be normal access. We'll have employees, most likely this time around, it'll be the 4 of us, between us and our deputies. It'll be there 4 hours on Saturday, or 5 hours on Saturday and 5 hours on Sunday. And then
2 weeks.
extended hours during the week until 8 a.m. for 2 days a week. And that will start...
And then
as
8
Beth
hours a
said,
day
October.
thereafter.
Right.
And then next year, we'll have our poll site, that's the access, so we won't have to depend on our security guards for the weekends.
Have what access?
The after-hours access in the Human Services building, we have a poll site there now. So that's where...
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What kind of impact do you believe that's going to have on absentee ballots?
It's a good question, because we've got the same question ourselves. It hasn't been made clear to us yet whether we're going to have to continue our extended hours for absentee voters, which we do now, or whether they're going to do away with the extended hours for absentee and incorporate them into the early voting.
Well, we start over-the-counter voting, as soon as October 5th, top of my head, we have to have our military ballots out. We start OTCs right after that, absentee voters that come to the counter. And we're still mailing out our perms and anybody that applied by mail, that time frame. So, and we're kind of thinking, we're looking at our numbers this year thinking that those early votings are the folks that are going to be coming in to absentee vote anyway. Last year, so many people came in and, talked about early voting. It's like, not yet. Are you going to be out of town? Absentee application.
I will note that the cost that you're projecting for this early voting is considerably less than the projected average cost to other counties around that state.
Oh, you'll see, as we get going through here, you'll see what our projected cost is. And some of the counties around us, larger counties that have more voters, and of course you got to remember, for every 50,000 you're required one polling location. Lucky for us, we're a little over 40,000, so we're only required to have one polling location. Now remember, at each polling location is bipartisan. You must have a Republican and a Democratic a worker at that location, which comes out of our per diem or our extra help budget. So that's why this year we're trying to get it done in office, because we had no way of knowing about this. Everybody suspected it, but nobody could budget for it. So I think
We've talked about it, we
we're going to be fine. So it's something that Beth and I have worked on since last year when we suspected it was coming. So when we get into the poll book.
Yeah,
and
so
stuff,
with that,
it's-
with early voting, electronic poll books. So when people come to vote, early vote for that, they're signed the electronic poll book. And then Sunday is the end of early voting, we'll pack those e-poll books Sunday afternoon, evening to get delivery out Monday morning for our regular poll sites. So that's the best way. So when a voter goes to vote at their poll site, if they already visited us, those poll workers are going to know that person voted early. It's the best way to do that.
And as we get into the poll books later on, and you'll see where those electronic poll books are going to give us the ability to stop double voting. If somebody signs into that poll book, the electronic poll book is going to come up and say, whoop, bang, the red flag is going to go up the poll and it's going to say you've already voted, you can't vote here, you signed in. So, and we'll get into that, as we get through here into the e-poll books.
We got into it. And then we'll skip back to e-poll books after. Universal transfers. Supervisor Loeb actually questioned us on our year in review on the DMV portion that we do. the Department of Justice in 2017 stated that DMV must send all address transfers to the BOE. There's an opt-out box on the DMV forms. If that box is not checked, all those forms come to us. So we research all those forms. Last year we had 4,280. Of those, 2,307 were incomplete because the information that DMV sends us is not complete registration information. There's no RU18, date of birth covers that. Are you a citizen, the party, and then the signature piece is missing also. So we send out a letter and a registration form to those 2,307 people. We don't get many of them back, maybe 10%. So now, if those 2,307 people have moved within the state, we are going to register them that transfers throughout the state. So New York State has a voter database. We'll see that. If that voter is, we're getting their address changed, they're not registered in Warren County, they have moved from Washington County, we would look them up in the NICE voter, we call it, the New York State database, and register them in Warren County.
So
And then
basically,
inform Washington County that they are now registered with us, and then we send a confirmation card. So we're still mailing, we're sending a registration card, or a confirmation card to that voter in our county. Yes, this is true, you've moved, you're now registered voter in Warren County.
basically when they move county within county, or county out of county to another county to county in New York State, the Board of Elections basically will capture them and they'll receive some type of notification from the current Board of Elections as to where they live, as that you moved here, you're now registered here, but you're no longer registered in Warren County.
So the registration follows them throughout New York State.
Fantastic. Any questions at this point?
It sounds confusing.
That sounds like a really good program, though.
And this starts next Monday.
Yeah.
So there'll be no more issue of someone lived in Queensbury, Ward 4, and moved to Queensbury, Ward 1. That's going to automatically happen. They won't have to say, oh, now I've got to
Well,
go back to
again,
the
if
other
they
polling
go to
place.
vote and they're not in the poll books and we didn't get any information, they have to do an affidavit. So yes, and then...
Oh, okay, they've got to change their addresses.
Right,
Someplace.
Yeah.
they should
someplace.
notify us to change their
So
address, whether it's
we are going to
DMV,
get it through DMV or agency.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
either DMV or file a new registration for a change of address with us, one of these. But it'll take time if it comes through DMV. You got to remember it's going to take some time to go from them back to us and... but we will get
Within
notified.
Warren County, we move them around without a problem. So if they voted affidavit and they just moved from Ward 1 to Ward 4, we would move them and count their ballot. But now that's
Signature.
statewide.
Very good. Thank you.
And what's the last?
Pre-registration.
Pre-registration, 16 and 17-year-olds. Right now, we pre-reg 17-year-olds. What the thought process behind that is when a 16-year-old gets their driver permit, they'll get registered to vote, pre-registered to vote. On their 18th birthday, we'll activate them, and they'll get a registration card, and they'll be able to vote.
And what it'll do is increase our deputies' job as far as registering 16-year-olds. The minute we get that report from DMV, they pop it in, it sits there basically idle until they're 18. The minute they turn 18, our deputies will get notification, so-and-so turned 18, they register them, they're ready to go.
Vice Leggett.
So this is a voluntary to register when you get your permit, or...
It will be automatic, same as the address piece. If they're getting a permit, and they do not check opt out of a voter registration, we're getting that form.
Get the form, but there's no party and things like that,
Correct.
are there?
Right, right.
Yep, so we would send them a letter that we're doing now at this point.
Okay.
Vice McGowan.
What happened to the day when you were proud to turn 18, you registered for the Army, and you went and signed up to vote? What happened to those
Now they
days?
want to catch them before they get in the Army.
You know, and then you wait till you're 25, so when your insurance went down, which I found was a farce, because
Yeah.
mine went down $3.
So those are the changes that we're looking at this year.
Wow.
Any questions on any of
You guys have
them?
been busy.
Yes, and we'll continue to be busy.
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, this is, probably a question for Francis. Sooner or later, they're going to have to do a budget transfer. So.
Well, we could get right to e-poll books if you would like.
Oh.
Yeah, we're trying to get through our slide projection here first. You know, and as you look through that slide projection, just a couple quick points. You'll see on one sheet where it says it's going to save up to $25 million statewide for early voting. That's a projected cost. Eventually, over the years, and again, when we get into e-poll books, you're going to see where there will be savings of money. But it's not going to be a $25 million lump sum. Over the years, you're going to see the progression. You're going to see the money that we're going to save as that goes on. And as Beth said, we're ready to go. We think we're in pretty good shape.
Yep.
Our office knows where we're going and what our intent is. But if you have any questions on that presentation, just feel free to give us a call.
So e-poll books, we're looking at roughly $225,000.
1 year.
That's your hardware purchase.
It's a 1-year license?
That's the investment of the hardware. The biggest thing is the investment of the hardware. That's where,
You have
yep,
the year.
they should have that sheet in there.
Oh, the software is just a 1-year license. How much is the
Right.
software? I'm sorry.
The software is $26,900.
And just so you're aware, that sheet that we're looking at right now, that Supervisor Wild is looking at right now, and that's in it should be in your pack there. I think it's the second sheet, yes, the one with the pink and blue on it. That's a projected, okay, that the state came to every board and asked every board to do a projection of what they saw. So there's a lot of estimates on there. The firmware, the software, and the hardware is estimated at this point as well. But it's probably going to be pretty close.
And that's a high week.
Supervisor Garrity.
Absolutely. And the problem, now, we are meeting with Region 2 the 26th
Next
of March.
Tuesday. We've seen, this is only one, we went with, NTS is our software company now for our voter database. That's the first people we went to get guesstimates, so that's that. We did a webinar with 10X, it's another company. Next Tuesday, we're seeing 3 others. So at this point, of course, money, and then at the state level, they have to approve which companies we're buying them from also. So they're in the research process there also. Now, moving forward, the Senate has passed e-poll books, and in their budget is $10 million to share across the state. Assembly has not passed the e-poll books. And at this point, there's $7 million for ancillary early voting items, and then $27 million for e-poll books.
And the
So-
projected distribution of that and how they're going to do it is they're going to take your registered, very similar to what they did in HAVA. When we bought the old machines, they're going to take the amount of registered voters you had, and they're going to distribute those funds based on that. Will it cover all of this? Probably not, but it'll may cover the vast majority of it.
Sure. I mean,
we're
our
hoping
guesstimate was about $90,000 that we may get.
that we may get. And what we're trying to do with this Region 2 meeting, the reason we brought it up, the Region 2 meeting is all the basically the Board of Elections in the North Country up here. We're getting together, trying to do basically is what Julie does with the conglomerate, trying to get a group of us together to all buy the same type of machine, which we probably figure, once the state certifies, that's what they're going to make us do anyways, have pretty much the same machines, and try to get a reduced price because we're all buying them as a group. We won't know more on that until next week.
Supervisor Leggett first, and then Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. When Supervisor Thomas and I were down at the Capitol a couple weeks ago, ES&S were there demonstrating their poll books and their machines, and it does look like a very efficient operation. It should really...
Well, we did do a presentation, and I thank you for that. I think that's the end. I don't want to jump ahead too far. We'll only wait there, but we agree with you. ES&S is quite a system and quite
Did you see
a...
the voting machine also?
Yeah, so we'll
ballot and
yeah.
firms and everything, yes.
We'll come in at the very end, we want to discuss that and just give you a heads up on where that's going. You'll see an attachment in there, but I don't want to jump too far ahead, so we're at the
seeing,
poll
ES&S
books.
poll book, we're seeing it, we haven't seen those
Right,
yet.
right.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, the security, the Wi-Fi and this e-filing, I mean, it's, with all this hacking going on,
There's thumb drives, that our database would go on thumb drives. And yes, we would be able to see. Now, again, this is all, our policy and procedures hasn't been given to us from the state board either. So we're all kind of speculating on,
So it's not like that signal goes from the machine across the airs to you guys, it calls the thumb drive at that pole, and then you secure the thumb drive and bring it to your machine that counts it.
correct.
Correct. They'll be interconnected within the polling
Poll site.
locations. So that they'll be able to talk to each other in the polling locations, but to go over the Wi-Fi over the internet, not that we're aware of at this point, but again, like Beth said, this is
We've
such premature
seen
stages.
demos that we could sit at our computers and tell when a voter voted, an instant history, voting history, which again would be easier for us and a quicker process to go through our affidavits and get our ballots counted and certify the election.
Supervisor Hogan, then Supervisor Wild.
I have a couple questions. Understanding that the guidance isn't out yet, have you heard any talk about, for those of us who are maintaining that Wi-Fi connection, are we going to get guidance on what the security has to be?
I'm sure. I mean,
That's on us, that's not on you.
I think,
Well-
I think it's going to be encrypted. The way we're
Yeah.
hearing it is all the information
Yeah, I'm
that's
not an
coming
IT
through the Board of Elections and in and out of the Board of Elections is all going to be encrypted. I'm no computer
Yeah, not
guru
either
or
mine.
voice,
I asked Mike
but-
Colvin about it. I said, is this something that we have to have some kind of security at each poll site? And he said, no, it's with the encrypted in our server.
My other question is, so we're not even really sure what's being transmitted by the internet at
If
this
there's
point.
going to be any, yeah.
Okay. But we just know that we need to be ready with Wi-Fi. Okay.
And we have surveyed our poll sites last 2 years, and all of them have Wi-Fi.
Right, but we're going to have some kind of minimum security on that. I mean, right now, our Wi-Fi in that building is open.
Right.
So there will be some cost to the municipality or whomever's maintaining that site to...
That was
put
one of the
some level of
guesstimates,
security
that
on
the
that.
state had asked for the Wi-Fi.
Right.
If those are funds are in there. And, I mean, we've been, the Board of Elections, we're going constantly with cybersecurity. I mean, they just hired a whole staff at the state board just for cybersecurity, so I'm sure that
We'll get some
there's
guidance on what
input.
that-
We had 5 people in our office a month ago that come in and did a cybersecurity walkthrough. We had to
Actually, that
give
was at
them...
election time.
Yeah, right. We had to give them everything. We had to give them our operations and procedures. We had to pass through when we went, and we were one of the pilots. Warren County was a pilot, and we did, knock on wood, and thank God to IT. I'll tell you, without Mike Colvin, we'd be lost. But we had a lot of the procedures in order. They were ready to go. Mike come up and helped us through it, and he's still helping us with it, but we kind of flew through that. Now we're waiting for the next step. So
Well, that's all great for your site, but now it's all on all our remote sites.
until we find out what it is, Supervisor Hogan, we can't.
Right. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Second question is, what are the backups should the internet fail during election
We'll still
day?
be printing paper lists.
But you were saying that you can tell whether somebody's already voted or not, and that's all in the e-books. Is there going to be there's a paper backup?
Those sticks,
That thumb drive.
thumb drive, or...
It'll be in that. And then if it does fail, they'll have a paper list that if somebody comes in and wants to vote, they'll still be able to vote. They'll check off or sign through that list and then drop into the emergency box or whatever. But,
So there are redundancies.
yeah.
Right. And, I mean, a suggestion to this NTS, is having, Johnsburg, we could do it with one e-poll book, but there would be, at the back of bunch of papers.
And I believe most of them are battery backup, the poll books. So,
Thank you.
Supervisor Wild, then
Chairman,
Chairman.
thank you. Always Ross. Supervisor Hogan more than covered my questions.
Chairman?
Yes, Is now the time to discuss the table?
Sure.
All right, so if I'm reading this correctly, the salmon color...
It's for early voting,
Right.
for early voting.
Yeah, for early voting is something just shy of, say, $90,000. If you add up all these columns,
Yes,
that, am I reading it right? 7,964 plus 550 plus 500 plus 26,900 plus 20,000 plus 14.
Yes.
Plus 11 plus 5, if you add that up.
the 11 and 5, no, is, that's the 14.6.
That's in the 14?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So we would be somewhere around 80, call it 80.
Oh, no, wait, I back up, you were right the first time, that other column got cut off there, so you are right.
Okay, so we're back up to 90,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yep.
And then, in addition to that cost, is the election day information, which would be an additional 214,000, is that correct?
Correct,
Look.
correct.
So if you add all that, all in, we're talking close to $300,000.
Yes.
Correct.
I don't have a calculator with me,
Yeah.
but I just want a gentleman in front of me
And this is, again, they did say hi, and, because we're still not knowing.
No, I think you're doing exactly the right thing.
This is strictly a projection to give you an idea. Like I said, we've tried the best we could to contact individual supervisors and kind of give them a warning and a heads up that this is coming. There's nothing we can do about it. And as I said to Supervisor Garrity, for lack of a better term, it's an unfunded mandate, and it's a state law that said this is what you're going to do. And I kind of like walking on this side of the carpet. I don't think I want to hear anything clanging behind me when I walk into a room. So if it's law, somehow we've got to do it.
Supervisor Garrity?
Well, that's my question. I mean, you can't be nonchalant about it. This is a lot of money. I mean, how can you just sit there in Albany and say, you gotta do this, and you're gonna put this on the backs of your taxpayers? And I don't understand. Somebody, I mean, I don't get it.
I mean, our caucus...
2% tax cap and everything that we're facing in our town budget, and county budget, how can you just sit there and say 290 and that's it? I mean, come on now, that's not right.
That's why we're trying to do the best we can with Region 2. We actually called the Region 2 together.
Send another letter.
We actually were the ones that started the Region 2. We made the first call to Kathy up and asked, can we get together and see these in bulk, so it's going to reduce the cost. I mean, it is what it is.
Supervisor Wild?
I'm thinking about these numbers here, but I'm also looking at the back pages.
That's
totally
another...
different.
It's totally different.
Those are new voting machines.
Which are proposed for next year?
No. We're
Be 20, what are we
2021.
in? 21.
2021.
Okay, so that's an extra $600,000.
Yep.
Yes.
That's the all-new machine.
$300,000 this year, and another $600,000 in another year. Correct. Because you'll buy them in 2020.
Yep.
There has been, we did start a capital budget line for this.
Well, there was discussion of it, but it got lost in the sand somewhere. There was discussion last year. Beth and I come in last October, was it? Or September?
October.
And we had recommended starting a capital project because we knew this stuff was coming. And I know back when I sat on this board, we started it for the IT program at $100,000 a year. We put it into an account. And now, as you all know, that IT program is pretty much self-funding to the point that as long as you put your money in, it comes out. That was our general idea, is to start tucking some money away, so when this came forward, I'm a taxpayer in this county, as Beth and all of us are. I don't want to see any one department walk in and say, okay, I need $1 million, and see where's that going to come from. It's going to come from the taxpayers, the back of the taxpayers. So we're hoping to start this capital project or capital reserve, whichever. I mean, the budget, the budget chairman would want to do. Start as capital reserve or capital project to pinpoint this money for the Board of Elections, whether it be poll books or whether it be voting machines or whatever. Some of the funds would be there. I mean, not all of it, but some of the funds, so it wouldn't be drop down on you. And as you see, as long as we've jumped ahead a little bit with Supervisor Wild there, you'll see in there I did attach an email that we're going to hold Supervisor Loeb, Administrator Moore came to a presentation put on by ES&S that they did over there with that new machine, is what Supervisor Wild was talking about. Great machine.
Excuse me, before we jump
Yep,
too far.
I'm sorry.
Supervisor Thomas, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the capital, smaller capital projects. And, I think at that time in October, I said to you, whatever you have left in the budget, right, would be considerable. If that would be a good way to establish that. I just need to know what was left in the budget.
Well, this year, I think we looked at it roughly, it was like $42,000 maybe left in that budget, in last year's budget, left over in last year's budget, and as we said then, anything's better than nothing. You know, our thought was basically there was $100,000 in the budget or in a capital reserve
There was
project.
no mention of any e-books.
No.
We didn't know anything about
You
it.
mentioned.
Correct.
That was
You're absolutely right.
Will it last more than 10 years, or these like...
Again, it's their laptops, their pads, iPads.
They're like an iPad, is basically what they are.
Every 3 years, you're going to have to buy new ones.
We're giving you as a board everything that we have. Believe me, the information is like pulling teeth. We have, if we'd have known this was coming, we would have mentioned it when we mentioned the machines. We had no idea when we mentioned the machines that $200,000 in e-poll books were coming our way. And now all of a sudden, with the new laws that have changed, that have been dropped on us, this is what they're telling us. We have no clue.
Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, I hate to put you on the spot, but this new NI class investing in our money that would possibly yield 2.25%, is it, something like that? Do we know what we're doing with those monies eventually?
To answer the question, we're not going to make $1 million a year. Our projections are maybe half of that, $400,000, $500,000.
Right, but what are we doing with those monies, is what I'm getting at.
That money will go back into the general funds.
It will go into the general fund. I don't know. Now I'm starting to think of our budget officer and what he could potentially do with that money. But in our board meeting, you mentioned the Red Cross, and we kind of have a lot of different avenues where we can put that money. But I mean, it's sizable enough to possibly start up. This is never going. It's not going to end. We're going to have to replace software. So that's just a thought.
What was wrong with the old system?
The old machines?
The old machines we'll have to replace anyway. If we stayed with Dominion, we would be replacing our BMD machines.
What's wrong in 2020?
Sure. We could do that anytime because those are approved, but they will be...
They're certified by the
At this
state.
point, our predecessors ordered voting machines one-to-one at 72 EDs in 2008. With consolidation, we own 25 BMDs, 2 are out of service completely right now, so we have 23. We have 21 poll sites. So those BMD, ballot marking device, have to be at those 21 poll sites, which they are. They're 10 years old. They're scanners, they're computers. They need to be switched out. We saw this machine demoed July of last year at our summer conference. We loved it. Number one is ordering ballots. It's still paper-based, but we are able to order, it's almost like a punch card, a blank piece of paper that is coded for the EDs. You put that in the machine. Supervisor Loeb, I believe Supervisor Leggett just saw that demoed. That would start your voting session. Big screen, 32-inch, it's a touch screen. More similar to the lever machine. and we still have people asking, when's those coming back? When are coming back? This is where we are now.
And they were mechanical, so they probably would have been better because they were mechanical, instead of the electronic that we're in now.
So we liked that machine because of the ease of programming it, the ease of testing it, the lack of ordering paper ballots. Bill did do a
Yeah, just a
cost
lack of, if
comparison.
you see that, that's a comparison sheet, and that should be in your packet as well. What that is that's just a comparison. Dominion, which is our current machine, we pay 48 cents a ballot to have those prepared and printed. ES&S is 9 cents a ballot. Over the course of 2018, 17, and 16, I did a rough analysis, and if you look at it, you're 28, 38, you're $40,000 in savings. I know, and that's a pimple to, I understand, that's a pimple to 600,000, but there will be a reflow of money back slightly, and it will take, eventually, less personnel when it comes time to depending on where we go. Now, Dominion, just so you know, that what you have in your packet is from the S&S, that estimate, and there's some questions that we've got on there that they can sharpen their pencil. There's no doubt in our mind, and believe me, we'll make them sharpen their pencils. But we have also asked Dominion for a price to replace and do the same thing, and they have yet to get back to us. But we just, again, wanted to prepare you for, we wouldn't ask to do this in 2020, mainly because we don't want to do it and make a change like this in a presidential election. Our people out in the street would probably choke us if we did. But we also have asked ES&S to come to Queensbury School for their budget vote this year and do basically a demonstration.
Public to see, so we can get some feedback.
Right. We will use the Dominion machines at the school budget vote for Queensbury, which is one of our largest school budget votes. And we'll have those machines doing their normal, but out to the side as they're going to be going out, ES&S will be out to the side asking them if they'd like to see a demonstration of it so that they can see what it is. Again, like Beth said, to get some feedback from people to see what they think of the machine. It's not us, not just us. I mean, it's got to be the voter that likes them as well.
I think once we get past the initial learning curve, I thought it was a really neat machine. Supervisor Wild, then Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to be clear, there's $200 and some odd thousand that's an unfunded mandate because of the new legislation that comes out of the state. And then you're going to also be asking for possibly $600,000 for the voting machines that aren't mandated.
Correct.
So it's just part of our regular upgrade that we do or do not have the capital fund for the machines? We do not.
We're not, right.
And
Although,
we-
I will say we could do what we did this year with the cars. It's a one-time purchase. Frank had set up the
But it's
program.
not a one-time purchase, because these voting machines we have now are only 10 years old, so it's not a
Right.
one-time.
So it's going to be an ongoing.
You're gonna have-
All right, reports, are you all set, Supervisor Wild?
All right. As best I can be right now.
Supervisor McGowan was next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just so nervous because I know things nowadays with the electronics, that they're all throwaway. It's throwaway stuff. So how many years are we going to get out of this? I mean,
The poll books or
Just-
the voting machines? Both.
both. I mean, the old way has been going on for hundreds of years, and now we're going to this, newfangled way, and I know when my iPad gets a little slow, I smash it and go buy a new one. Is it me, or, I'm just so confused, and it's so much money.
When the laws change, we have to follow it. And I agree with Supervisor Garrity 100%. We have no control over unfunded mandates, nor do the Board of Supervisors. The state looks at you and says, this is what you're going to do, and you've got to do it. I know I don't want to be the one, like I said, that if they walk into my office and say, you're not following the law, you got a problem. I don't have a problem. I got news for you. But we, and just quickly, and Brett, I don't mean to cut in, but we did, when we had our demo here with Supervisor Loeb and Ryan Moore, I don't know if gentleman from ES&S misspoke, or if he made a tongue tie, but he told us we could purchase with 0% interest. And as you see that email that I tucked in there that we sent them on December 12th, if and when it does, or if it doesn't come down to it, we'd be locked in at 0% interest, just for a heads up on that. So, but...
If you may,
No, I mean, I know you've talked about it, you brought it up, and I appreciate the heads up, and I mean, like I said, mandate's mandate, there's nothing we can do, and, sometimes I just get so baffled being new in this, how, you know, New York State just, comes up with these mandates and just dumps on all of us, and it's like, now we have all these cutbacks coming back from New York State because, we're $2 billion in the hole, and we don't even know what that is yet.
I will say, Super Chairman, you're next, but I will say that the commentary on the unfunded finances has nothing to do with the fact that these things are going to be an advancement in the quality of our service to the public. Chairman.
Yeah. I mean, it just impresses me that this is not like a capital project, because a capital cost, because the life expectancy on this, I don't think is 10 years, greater than 10 years on the equipment anyway. So
Couldn't agree with you more.
I would think that the budgeting technique that would be more appropriate would be like somebody mentioned, like what we do with the automobiles. We have so much we appropriate to a reserve each year as part of our operating condition, and then we know some number of years down the road, 6 years, 7 years, we're going to have to replace, just like we would an automobile, we're going to have to replace it, and then there's funds in the account, as opposed to a capital project, which normally would have to be like a building, has much longer life expectancy. We have to set up improvements. So I would think that the challenge is going to be by not having sufficient lead time, there's going to be that initial cost, whatever that might be. But that's my thing in terms of the budgeting technique, or the way to think about this going forward. I think that's kind of an approach that makes sense to me.
Supervisor Hogan, then Supervisor Driscoll, then Supervisor Leggett, then Supervisor Wild.
One thing that might be incorporated into the capital plan, though, is generator backup for the polling sites. Because I don't know how many, do we even know how many of
That's a
them?
good question.
We do have that on, handful have generators. We have a poll site
I
survey
bet the
that goes
majority
out.
of them do, because there's a lot of them are fire companies,
Yeah,
I know
fire
they're all, schools.
Ours does not.
There's very few that aren't, but we can do that survey, we can take that survey and see how many are generated backup.
That might be
that-
appropriate.
That's absolutely, we can,
We don't know all of it.
Are there grants? There are no grants to help with any of this?
At this point,
not at this point. I mean, we're watching, we're hoping the HAVA, Help America Vote Act, which is what bought the old machines, we're hoping that, sooner or later, they're gonna come out with another round of grants that will help.
the assembly, again, in the budget, it's $7 million in that fund. But until budget, we don't know. how
And
much
part of
gets-
that, well, the way I read it, part of that may be able to be used as a grant for us to apply for the machines. I mean, but until they pass, I mean, there's nothing we can do with them, and once they're signed in, we may be able to say to them, okay, listen, we need new machines, and we want to apply for a grant out of the I think it was $7 million in the Assembly, and there was $10 million in the Senate. And the Senate has passed, the Assembly has not yet.
So there is some hope of help.
There is some hope for...
And then there's also $27 million in the Senate for e-poll votes. And we're hoping, again, our best, what we looked at, would be getting $90,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It just seemed to me that rather than put Beth and Bill on the spot with questions about hardware and software, possibly we could combine those questions and and concerns and forward it maybe to Mike Colvin for his opinion on those, and then
Mike is aware of, thanks, Ben. Mike is, or Supervisor Driscoll, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Mike is very familiar with what we're going through. He's been, I'll tell you, I don't know what we'd have done without the IT guys. I mean, in the minute we call, they're fantastic. They're right there. So it sounds like a great idea to find out, you know, and we've tried to share a lot of this with him to say that something we
We
really
questioned
need.
him on the security of the e-poll books, even the transfer of registrations that are coming across the state. We're setting up a new email just so those come through, you know, with that one email. So that's kind of like an unlock box type thing through the state. So, yeah, we work with Mike with a lot of this moving forward.
We don't want to miss any of
Getting
those
more
transfers.
technical.
Any of those transfers will come right through that one email, so when our deputies check their email in the morning, they can go right to that email. That's where that transfer is, and they can you know, and we just did that, we just set up this morning with Mike.
Supervisor Leggett. So the poll books go in conjunction then with the ballot machines, so that you need to know in advance.
Well, there's two different senses of that. E-poll,
Only two.
early voting is in our office. So we would have e-poll book plus ballot on demand.
Okay.
Because we're in a now, and you saw the ES&S machine, which would make that process a lot easier. So now we have the Dominion, which we print ballots ahead of time. So not knowing what to order ahead of time, which it's bad enough that we do that now for Election Day. Now we got to take early voting in to guess how many ballots to order. So with On Demand, which Dominion has also, and those are about $3,500 a piece, and we would need 3 of them, 2 to run, 1 for
I
backup.
think they're
Yeah, I think they're included
Yeah,
in that.
those are included in what
Okay, so
Supervisor
the
Wild.
Dominion.
So that,
Correct.
right now, that's this what year we would be looking at some kind of on-demand. We actually have been talking with Tammy to go through our printer company now to see if they might have something that we could use. So we
The
are
printer.
looking elsewhere for better prices on this printer. And it really is, it's just a humongous printer that you put a thumb drive in with your ballot PDFs on, and you put in there what you want, and it prints your ballot.
So instead of going through what their recommendation was, which is normally pretty high, Tammy
Yeah,
is
they were
looking
at like
for us to
$1,000
try to find one that
for-
would do the same thing, but much cheaper.
Okay.
So we are, I mean, we have our feelers out all over the place. But on Election Day, right now, we are ordering ballots still. And we do that, you know, voter history, looking at past elections.
And then next year? You know, if you're
Next
thinking-
year will be the same, because we don't want to do new systems for the presidential year. So, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
same process next year. But I do suspect that early voting will be heavier next year. And the primaries, we'll have the presidential primary and state and local primaries, so those all will encompass early voting next year. And, you know, and we might be doing 6 a.m. instead of 12 noon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mandates. I understand early voting is a mandate. Are the electronic poll books part of that mandate?
They are not, but how do you prevent somebody from not voting on a paper poll book? So we would have 42 poll books in our office. We get, usually couples come in, usually they come in groups, so we have even 4 people come to our, one couple from Queensbury Ward 1, one couple from Johnsford. So now we only have 2 people out front. They got to go get the poll books, have them sign it, then they have to go get their ballot, they would fill out the ballot, and then we have to load those poll books. They have to make sure that they're marked, make sure that voter history is done, and then those poll books have to be loaded Sunday after polls are closed into our delivery trucks to deliver all this stuff for Monday morning.
So, I've got a couple of components to my questions and comments. So this 200 and something thousand isn't mandated, it's a matter of convenience for your office.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I use the word
Yeah.
convenience, but it's a matter of logistics of
Yeah.
getting things done the way they...
But there might be other ways to do this, with more temporary staff, local printing, we can do something like that, maybe save ourselves $100,000 over the 200, and not have
And
to
again,
spend this money.
you know, moving forward, this year, sure. Next year is a whole nother story.
And that's part of where I'm going, but these $600,000 machines, is this mandated also?
No.
This is along the lines of what Supervisor McGowan was saying. And I agree, the more technology that you add into the process, the more failure points you have, potential failure points you have. So I've always believed in trying to keep it as simple as possible. So I have some reservations about doing this. I know that I'm a technical person also, but I have some reservations, especially with the cost. So what I would like to request is that you come back with maybe some alternatives in terms of some ways to do this.
But right now, we're in the process of 3 other companies, and then we did do a webinar for a 4th.
Okay, but they're all part of the e-poll book kind of stuff.
Correct.
What about the manual way, the old-fashioned?
The manual, I mean, if that's what this board chooses, that's your prerogative, but
It's
as
like an option, that's
as
what
that-
I'm bringing it up.
it could be an option, but I can tell you next year when we come back for budget, the salaries of
Right, so
4
next year,
employees,
we would have a
It's gonna
poll
be
site
different.
outside of our office, so we have to hire staff for 68 hours. All those poll books are down in that room. It is a securable room, but at this point, our plan is to bring everything back up and lock it in our office in a securable room. And we have, you know, it's 4 people typically that works for a table. Assuming we might have maybe 6, so for potty breaks, outside breaks, lunch breaks, etc.
So we could save $50,000.
and I'm not going to disagree with you in one bit, you know what?
And then
that's
then we're marking those poll books, we're loading them in on
I
Sunday.
understand, I understand.
And that's probably a decent projection.
Convenience, efficiency.
And we have to,
productivity
the other
kind of
piece of
thing.
that, we need that immediate voter history, again, for this transfer within the state, which is mandated. So if, you know, if everybody had paper poll books, we wouldn't be getting your results for 3-4 weeks.
Just, it seems like you do something in Excel for less than a couple $100,000. But, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that we look at some alternatives also besides
Well,
this.
we have, we're going to be back here again next month.
We are, 'cause we have to come for our...
Questions, and I suggest we email any questions
Sure.
to Bill and Beth, so they can be prepared to answer that. Supervisor Hogan.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't need to email that to you guys, do I? The
I mean, we're doing
that?
it now, so, I mean, hopefully, and we have to come back in April for our printer resolution.
Fort Orange contract.
Fort Orange contract. Hopefully, we'll know if there's budget, and we'll have some estimates from these other companies we're looking at. So hopefully, we'll have a little more.
Will
Tighter.
the e-books prevent what I like to call the midnight run? Will we still have to run everything down on election night like we do?
Yeah, those cards for those machines, that's how you get your
They still
results.
have to come
Yeah,
down?
yeah, that's where our tallies
So
are,
that,
and that's where we
the
get
cards
them
would
from.
come back and the poll books would come back, just like they do now.
But
The
that,
only-
so it
the only-
doesn't prevent that,
Yeah.
because that's actually kind of dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you've got people that have been, you know, all day.
Yep.
It's, Supervisor McGowan, but first, where are you in your list? Are we at the end?
I think we're done.
We just mentioned the
We
Fort
were all over
Orange
the
contract,
place.
we're pretty much finished. I mean, we'll be back in April. We had to go out to bid for ballots, for printing of ballots again, and that's just the normal contract procedure, which we have in the budget, that we gotta see what they're gonna charge for the next. We've asked them to break up, just so you're aware of it, we've asked Port Orange to break it up with an early out, just in case we do go to new machines, we won't need to be printing ballots any longer.
Yeah, years
So
later.
that's going to be part of our contract, but we can discuss that in April, that's fine.
Okay, Supervisor McGowan, but we will, it's just to mention that we want to consider probably moving that leftover $44,000,
I think
into a
we
capital
look at
account?
it quick, and please don't hold me right to it, but it's in the between 40 and 50,000, I think it was left over in our budget.
That'll be at the next, after Supervisor McGowan. Supervisor McGowan, question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure before we leave today that we have some kind of funding that we started, so we're not waiting another month or, 2 months, and, like I said, so that, thank you.
Well, that segues into, you were suggest we need a motion?
Well, Bill, you brought up the fact that there was money left in the budget for Board of Elections this year and the potential of using that money to set up a reserve. Is that would go
That's what
with the approval of...
Supervisor Thomas suggested.
Supervisor Thomas.
So we need a motion to do that? So we need a motion then to establish a reserve account, capital reserve account, being funded initially by the balance of the Board of Elections.
Surplus balance of our budget, I'm guessing, correct? Would that be the proper, Frank?
Make that motion.
Thomas, I'm sorry.
Motion made by Supervisor Wiles, second by Supervisor McGowan.
Yep, okay.
I hesitate to ask this, but discussion? Supervisor Hogan?
Is this reserve fund for the purchase of the e-books or for both polling machines and e-books?
I think that would be...
Whatever.
Just figured out, they need some money. It's a
We'd have to come back,
we'd have to come back for either one.
Right, we'd have to come back to this committee before we could expend any of it anyway, so it would be something through approval through this committee, so.
Other questions? Then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else? Beth? Bill?
Nope.
We'll see you
Anything else for them from the committee?
Thank you so much. Thanks for that great news, guys.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Julie Montero was very happy to go first.
Hopefully 5.
One public portion, one executive.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, thanks. All right, take care.
Couple of years, maybe we should
Bradley's on it, Hey, let's go back to the old way.
I feel like our system
The hell's wrong with
vulnerable.
All right, Ben, you wanted to say something before we rush out of here after the county attorney.
Okay, yes, thank you. I neglected at the Health, Human and Social Services Committee meeting to just mention at the completion of our board meeting this past Friday, Supervisor Bramer, Chairman Conover, and I were able to attend a presentation of the Tobacco 21 initiative, and it was very informative. We had Superintendent of Schools from Warrensburg. We had Dr. Mary Nevins, pediatrician from Adirondack Pediatrics. 2 other participants from the Council on Prevention and another organization who's Warren County Mental Health, and as well as Janelle Jones and a number of her staff members. Very informative. I think we all received this packet of information. I would encourage people to read up on this and certainly reach out. Supervisor Bramer and I would be happy to discuss some of the items that were discussed.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks. Just quickly, it was very informative and enlightening. I worry about the vaping thing with my kids, and one of the statistics that they gave, which I thought was very frightening, was that 31% of our students in 7th through 12th grade in Warren County are vaping.
As opposed to 5% smoking.
That is a tobacco product that is regulated like a tobacco product. However, all of those flavorings and all of that stuff is not regulated. So these kids are having access to stuff that they think is like bubble gum. And it's really concerning. And the way that it leads to additional regular smoking use, I thought was really interesting, because I thought people wouldn't go from vaping to smoking combustibles, but apparently that happens. And it's just, and then it leads to this legacy of our children being addicted to these substances for the rest of their life. They talk about 90% of adults started when they were like 13 or 14 years old. So it's really something that Warren County, especially with our cancer rates, and the cost that causes to our Medicare and Medicaid in the county, I really think it's something that we should be taking a look at.
Including the U.S. military, which was pointed out, that the amount that the services spent on tobacco health-related issues is cause for concern as far as that segment of the population is
And the
concerned
big thing
also.
there was, so the military does not want their soldiers addicted because it affects troops' readiness and their
Okay.
health.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the county attorney. We'll have a public portion, and then we'll ask for a going into executive session. So, Mary?
So my first item, I was approached by two attorneys last week. They're handling a private sale between two individuals of land in Thurman. And they approached me because, and I apologize, I probably should have made a copy for everybody, but the parcels in orange are the parcels that they're buying. And if you can see between these two thin parcels, that's River Road in Thurman. And then between this thin parcel and this larger parcel, that's the railroad tracks. So their title company pointed out that they actually don't have any rights to go from their driveway over to a bigger portion of land. So they asked if I would request an easement from the board so that they can go from their driveway to their 32 acres of land.
We have some history along this line, not for this particular, but Supervisor McGowan.
Well, it's up in Thurman, and this happens not to be the same property that was in a little history many years ago, is it looks like it's landlocked, and now there's a sliver there that just kind of appeared. I mean, that's just, looks wide enough for a road to me, so you got a piece of land that's locked behind, you know, and so I'm just wondering if, it is...
The history is that the King's School wanted to get to their athletic field, and we went on, took 2 years. I don't know where it finally ended up, but I know we discussed it for 2 years, and that they couldn't just walk across the tracks. They would have to walk down to half a mile at the official crossing. So I don't know where we stand with King's School, but what we did to resolve that, but it's not a cut and dry saying, oh sure, just cross the tracks.
Yeah.
Go ahead, and then Supervisor Wild. Anything else?
I don't know if I have anything
Okay,
else.
Supervisor Wild?
I'm just thinking about moving this over to DPW because there's implications with the right-of-way of the rail, crossing the rail tracks, right? So are there costs associated, future costs associated with having an extra crossing? I'm not prepared to make a determination today until I understand the economic cost that the county might incur.
I just want to be clear, this is not a road. This is a driveway. It's that little parcel that you see in between there, that's literally just a driveway. So if we don't give them the easement, that's essentially a taking by the government. We're not allowing them to get to their land. So, I mean, there are legal implications for the county about not giving them an easement as well.
Fire laws.
Supervisor Thomas?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's all kinds of crossings across the railroad tracks. People's driveways, roads, I don't see what the big deal is. So if there's no additional liability, then that would withdraw my concerns.
Supervisor Bramer?
Well, how have they been getting there since, I mean, just let them do whatever they've been doing. We don't need to give them an easement.
The problem is that their mortgage company won't give them the mortgage without title being
That's
clear.
not our problem. I'm sorry. That really isn't our problem.
Supervisor
that Christian...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mary, what's our exposure?
I mean, I don't think we have much exposure considering they've been crossing here for years. I think they could actually argue that they have adverse possession of this, but you can't take against a municipality, so they'd have to go all the way back to when Delaware Hudson owned it. I think they could make that argument, but I mean, I just think the appearance of not giving them an easement to get to their property is probably the biggest exposure the board has.
Just give them the easement without...
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we give them the easement and have them take all the liability and
Yes, of course.
associated with the use of that easement?
Yes.
And the only other question I have is, and it's for the DPW, is there any issues with potential sale of our tracks that this could cause?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I don't see any issues just because they would have to deal with the same issues that we are. And I wish I had printed this for everybody, but if you see all these other parcels here, those are all driveways as well.
Supervisor Bramer?
So are they going to all ask us for easements as well?
I'm assuming not till they don't get a mortgage for their property.
Supervisor Bramer?
Considering that DPW is next, I think it would be not a bad idea to run this by at least 10 pages. Or find out what happened in that other property that came school.
Well, yeah, but
Sure. We're going to have Mr. Hajones come in. Okay, go ahead.
I have also been talking to Kevin about this. He just mentioned that he had so many things on his agenda. He asked me to bring it through my committee, but we can certainly ask him about it as well.
So at this point, you're looking for a resolution from us,
Yes, authorizing an easement over the two parcels.
okay? And this is one of 20 driveways that are right next to each other, and it's the only one that's actually asking for an easement.
At the moment.
And we can put in restrictions as far as them assuming liability. Supervisor Garrity?
well, I mean, it does seem similar, but it is this similar because the King School wanted to walk a bunch of kids across the
Yeah.
to get to their athletic field. So I don't think though it's similar, it is not the same.
True.
That's what the King School, they needed to get across the tracks to get to their athletic field. I think there's a little bit different. But why are they asking for this?
Mortgage company.
They
Oh,
can't get a
because they're
mortgage.
purchasing the property, right? It's for sale?
Yeah, they can't get a mortgage without having clear title to their property.
To access it.
Supervisor Sokol?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to make a motion to move this forward as long as the liability and exposure rests on their shoulders. I'm okay with that.
Okay, we do have a motion. Supervisor Wild, comment?
Chairman, two things, thank you. One, I'd like to have this moved to DPW, primarily because I'd like to understand exactly how many easements we already have on that line for all these driveways. And is this unique compared to all those others? If they've been using it, these other properties have been using their own driveways, but they don't have easements.
I will second Supervisor Sokol's motion.
Okay.
Do you want me to answer?
Sure, absolutely.
All of those properties are currently using their driveways. The only reason this is an issue is because these people are trying to sell their property to somebody else, and the purchaser cannot get a mortgage without being able to access their land.
I understand.
Otherwise, they would continue using the driveway from
As
now
it was,
until-
yeah.
But when you, legally, an easement is different from somebody just using a driveway.
Correct.
Right, so is this so what I'm trying to get at, is this easement unique
I don't know.
No.
for crossing? Do we have other crossings that have easements that are similar and?
There's probably 100 crossings on our rail line. I mean, Stony Creek, all up and down Warrensburg Road. Every driveway that accesses towards that side of the road, left-hand side, has an easement across our line. This may be a unique situation that this one didn't get picked up. I asked Tim Benway, our Parks and Rec Director, to go through to see if he could find this one. He couldn't, but he's got a book of deeds this thick for all the easements across our
Okay.
road. So it's not
Then
unique.
It's not unique, right?
Kevin, I'll ask you to do, in our motion, we said that they would assume any liability issues. Do all the other people have that same?
Yes, I don't have one of these in front of me to read, but I believe that's what the easements state.
Okay, further questions, discussions for Mary or Kevin? Supervisor Bramer?
Do all of those other ones along this area also have deeded easements from the county already?
No, I'm not going to say all of them do. We've looked through the book. Some do, some don't. Tim had assumed when they had remapped this rail line back in the early 90s that they had gotten easements further through there. Apparently they did. They did get a lot of them, but this is an instance that they didn't get this one.
Do the landowners, have they paid us
No.
any considerations? No.
Chairman?
I mean, to me, there's a difference between an easement that ran with the property that existed prior to our acquiring the railroad and our providing easements across a railroad right-of-way. I remember the school situation. That was a very particular situation, a very specific situation there. As I remember, there were gates involved, and there was considerations of safety and security.
Because children were going to be crossing on a regular basis.
All kinds of considerations. Just kept them from having to go all the way around down to the road. I'm just wondering what our policy is going to be going forward relative to any requests from anyone now in the future that requests easement across railroad right-of-way. What our process is going to be. I mean, on this one, I'd like to see it plan form. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it have some kind of plan, tax map, something put in front of me. I'd like to know what the history of it is. I'm concerned that, I mean, are we setting the stage here to have to provide 100 easements? I don't know. That's not ridiculous. 150 easements? I mean, what exactly are we providing and why are we providing it? I mean, if someone purchased a piece of property that was landlocked, that now doesn't want the property to be landlocked, but the way they're going to unlock it is to get easement across our railroad. I'm sure, I mean, perhaps the previous property owner, if they knew that, might not have sold a landlocked piece of property. They might have sold it for property with access. You see my point? There could be any of a number of, I'm not saying this exists, but there could be any of a number of properties that fall into that category of landlocked, for example. Or, if not landlocked, that is a much more direct and expedient crossing to be able to cross the railroad to get to a road. Normally, railroads and corridors like this, regardless of whether there's any kind of use, you want to control crossings. You want limited crossings. You don't want people crossing wherever they want to cross. I'm just worried where this is taking us, I guess. Is my point.
If I could, we have Supervisor Gowan and Supervisor Hogan, but Kevin, if you would address that. I think you asked a question, Kevin answered earlier, that there are basically innumerable amounts of driveways right now, and this was a driveway, has been for many years, and the only reason we're asking for an easement was because they're trying to get a new mortgage. But there are also a lot of driveways and a lot of easements already on the books.
That's correct. I don't necessarily know that you'd be reinventing the wheel on this. There are easements that exist today that someone has a piece of property, and again, I use Warrensburg Road as an example, but that's ideal. Every property on the side of the river that crosses the tracks, they have a small parcel of property up front, which basically is their driveway, and then they go over the track with their driveway to their larger parcel, which that's similar to what this one is. And they do have easements. Whether the easements were done long ago with the railroad or whether they were done when the county took them over, there are easements already in place. It's just this one in particular, going through the deed book, it looks like a map was even created. We had to actually look into it. It looks like there was a map, just no easement went along with the map. So I'm not sure that you're necessarily reinventing the wheel, because there's a bunch of these already.
Well, that might be, and you might be absolutely correct, but then again, is it possible there might be a section of the rail where that condition exists, which we have to deal with, but we don't necessarily want to promote that in another section of the rail where the condition doesn't exist. That's my point.
Yeah, I think this one's a unique situation, that if this one was just missed, it's, as I said, Tim has a book of deeds for all the crossings on that's fairly thick. This might have been one that just got missed way back when. And again, there was a map I can tell you right now at DPW, there's a lot of right-of-way maps that I have that were signed by the previous superintendent, and they were never filed. I'm thinking I have right-of-way on a road, the right-of-way is not there. I think a map was created for this at one time to do this easement. It just never got filed or never went through the proper channel.
Just Mary just pointed out, on the map, there are 9 other driveways within a quarter mile on each side of this particular driveway.
That cross the rail.
That cross the rail.
That have been provided easements, or that they have just...
I have to go through every single one of them. Again, I know there's a book of easements, but,
Okay, Supervisor McGowan, then Supervisor Hogan, then Supervisor Leggett.
Well, the only thing, you know, what Mr. Chairman Conover, I forget how the chairman, you know, but,
All right.
what we gotta think about also too is, the future, if, it becomes a non-railroad and becomes a recreational trail, you know, at the crossings, and now we have to worry about bicycles, maybe snowmobiles, or, you know, whatever this path is gonna be used as, you know, it's a crossing too, so it's, it sounds like it's just it was just overlooked. Looks like it's been there. I understand the purpose of the evening, as long as it gets plowed up and they take full responsibility. But I worry about in the future what we're going to do with that line, because, you know, now you're going to have stop signs at every, just knowing on the trails that I've been on the railroad snowmobiling, you know, you come to these, you all have to stop, so.
Supervisor Hogan.
Refusing these easements has the potential to significantly impact property prices along this corridor.
Supervisor Leggett.
There's vacant land and there's developed land. Developed land would already have access to it, and maybe we should just formalize the easement with it. Have some reservation about expanding that to anything that is already a vacant land and would be increased use.
Should we limit the potential for development along the corridor?
Take one step at a time, you know, so, or put that through on case by case. If it was to be a developed piece of property, that would show up in front of a planning board site plan, access driveway from town road or county road. It would have to go through all of that permitting as well, so there's a lot more involved than before it would get to us. But if we already have existing developed properties with historic right of use across it, and if this just formalizes it, perhaps that's what we need.
Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to think that we would have to trust our county attorney on this one. If she doesn't believe that there are any issues with this, I don't know why we're beating this one up pretty good.
I agree.
Supervisor Hyde, I gotta see you. Very good. Great. Any other discussion? We do have a motion and a second. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One opposed. The motion carries. Anything else before we go to executive session?
Nope, I would just request that we go into executive session to talk about current litigation.
I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to talk about current litigation. Supervisor Sokol, and second by Supervisor Hogan. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're in executive session. We are out of executive session. No action was taken during the session. Mary, do you have anything else for support services?
I don't.
Anybody, any other comments or privilege of the floor for support services? Motion to adjourn. Motion by McGowan, second by Supervisor Sokol. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.